Hey there, welcome to episode 142 of the Quaggling Sand audio program. I'm your host, Dan Hugo. It's 12:06 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time here in Greater Vegas on Wednesday, July 29, 2026. You can hear my voice is already taking advantage of the crazy weather. I have been outside. I think that's part of the problem. So whatever's floating around in the air. But hopefully my voice will keep up with us today. We normally do publish these episodes earlier on Wednesdays, but trying to get my speaking voice up to par. Today's title and topic, driving, like in a car. I went outside today and I walked, did my usual kind of a short loop, get some vitamin D going. Did not get hit by a car. It's always nice. But that is going to make an appearance here. I've not been hit by a car as far as I'm aware, but we will talk about that a tiny bit here. Driving like a car. Quaggling Sand, by the way, if you're not familiar, is my audio essay sort of vanity channel. There are never any guests. I don't think there would be. It's mostly recollections, tales, memories, stories. Sometimes interesting, maybe useful, maybe not. It's hard to say. 142 episodes already, crazy. And like I said, normally I try to publish a little bit earlier, but that's fine. We're good. Now, hopefully wherever you found this audio program, you're able to locate the episode description, which contains the show notes, including a brief summary, which I'll read to you. No additional links for today, just the usual two, the homepage and the profile page. So let's get to it. I'm not even going to tell you what Quaggling Sand is. If you've never heard an episode before, you're going to have to try it and see what happens, or come back next week. So on that note, a summary of today's episode, one of the big milestones, or at least it used to be, driving, no more true than it was in the U.S., cars and driving them represents a form of freedom to go where we will, or something like that. I don't know if that's really so true anymore. From what I understand, cars are becoming less popular. That is, the Gen Z, maybe the Gen Alpha are not, I don't know, who's 16 nowadays? 16, 17, 18? The tail end of Gen Z maybe, and the early Gen Alphas. The excitement about getting a driver's license and driving, I think, has waned a little bit, maybe because Lyft and Uber are so easy and owning a car is not something people think about anymore, and that I'm in that boat. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know what the deal is right now. Myself, that's what we're going to talk about today. I'm not really so much into driving. I used to be, not anymore. The Quaggling Sand homepage, QUOGGLINGSAND, Quaggling Sand. Hopefully when you found this audio program, wherever you did, you noticed that the spelling was that, or you can just click on the link. I don't know what will happen on your phone or computer or whatever, wherever you found this. Hopefully it will open a browser and you go to the quagglingsand.com homepage. What you will see there may be ugly, but someday when I have actual web traffic. The last time I looked, I think there had been 2 visitors or something in some period of time. We've never seen anything like it. Just kidding. So yeah, quagglingsand.com homepage. If nothing else, I'm trying to make sure that the link to that is the thing that I share in regard or with regard to this audio program, because eventually I would like to have people go there. I'm thinking about how I can augment the audio programs with the notes, or maybe the transcript, or maybe go through the transcript and make sure it's actually correct. I would like people who are hearing impaired to be able to participate, maybe a chat or a community thing. And I have talked about doing a live stream of some sort or some other engagement, not necessarily with Quaggling Sand, but I do have several other programs. Speaking of, my profile page, Linking Everything, which I've had for 5 years and 3 months, 4 months. It's been since March sometime of 5 years ago, 2021. Yeah. So March, so long ago. The profile page, Linking Everything, is my buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo profile page. It's a free-form profile page that I have links to all of my audio programs, various projects. I have some biographical information on the top, at the top of the page. There's some affiliate links if you'd like to participate in that. I have no idea how much I would get from any of those, probably maybe one or two coffee beans. There are a lot of coffee links, but they're all products that I actually use. The Cash App, Cash Card thing, I actually use that for groceries all the time. So I have a link to that, like an affiliate link, and I have the Nasal Fresh, which I should use today. I think I used it like a week ago. I'm trying to cut down on, because it kind of burns slightly. I mean, the net effect is good, but I'm trying to see how long I can go without it. You never know if you're going to be somewhere without a way to flush out the old sinuses, and the sinuses do play a role in my voice here, my voice situation. Not only can you don't have to spend any money, by the way. You don't have to buy or spend in any way. The buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo profile page is my link tree, but it's a freeform link tree. So links to everything all over the place. Also, there's no partnership or other affiliation with the Buy Me a Coffee site or site owners, but I used to publish exclusively the Buy Me an Update audio program, which is named for Buy Me a Coffee. I figured, that would be an interesting thing to see if people, no, it was not interesting. People don't go to buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo to listen to a podcast. They may click on a link to one. So I still publish Buy Me an Update on the buymeacoffee.com/Dan Hugo/posts part of the website. But some 2 hours later, usually I publish it through all the other normal places. So Spotify, Amazon, Apple, an RSS feed from Spotify or from Spotify for Creators. It might be on iHeartRadio, and then I can't remember now. And then it's also published automatically to YouTube, where transcripts are automatically generated, which is why I do that. So at the very least, a YouTube version of a transcript is always available. So hopefully I cover all the bases. On that note, I don't have any water. I might pause to grab some water. Driving, the earliest days, way back, from what I understand, both of my parents, see, I wasn't there for this, but both of my parents were fairly car oriented when they were younger. I should add that in there. Fairly oriented. When they were younger, like high school, college age. One of them was into repairing, even restoring cars, and would make long haul cross country trips now and then. The other was more into racing them, believe it or not, and is more utilitarian around town, driving for the sake of project work and so on. The car has been a thing for the duration, though, so cars in my family have been two great tastes, so to speak. When I was about 10 years old, we visited my grandparents in Punta Gorda in Florida. You may have heard of Punta Gorda in the news. Many years ago, it was flattened by a hurricane. But when it was still around, Punta Gorda, it's a long time ago, long before that storm, we would go there for the summer, 2 summers, I think. My sibling and I don't want to include people who don't want to be included, so I try not to refer to people and give away too much data. As it happens, my grandparents, had a home in a new retirement community. I think in Florida, they're just called communities. So there was only one home theirs on their street for miles. You could see for miles there was nobody else. It was a big open space. As it happens, they lived on a street called Turtle Dove Circle. Now, my grandparents are no longer with us, so don't go visiting any of the homes on Turtle Dove Circle if it's still there. But it was, as you can guess, a circle, a little racetrack of sorts. So I learned how to drive there. They had a Toyota Corolla hatchback. No, not a not a hatchback. They had a hatchback, and they also had, I guess it would have been a sedan style, but I don't know. The red one, if anybody remembers that, which happened to have a standard transmission. So a Toyota standard transmission back in the day was a pretty easy to shift, easy to get into first gear, etc. Definitely on the other end of the spectrum of easy to drive vehicles, my parents had at some point selected a Chevy Citation. I think it was the car of the year that year, allegedly. When would that have been? 1986, 85, something like that. Maybe before that. I don't remember. It was a while. Standard transmission, a standard Chevy transmission, which was operated with cables, which for a brief time was a vehicle I was able to drive to get my learner's permit and then on occasion drive to school before I had the bug. If one were to select from the old Toyota Corolla and a less old Chevy Citation to learn how to drive a standard transmission vehicle, and I don't even know if anybody does that anymore, there really is no comparison. The Toyota was easy. The Chevy was difficult. To go for the Citation, everything else is a piece of cake after that. So if you can learn how to drive in a Chevy Citation from the 80s, you can do whatever you want. You can the roads are yours at that point. So I'll mention VW. I have gone through the car selections in previous episodes. So you can check out episodes 8, 11, 48, and 70 of this audio program if you like. 8, 11, 48, and 70. Wherever you found this program, they are there, but from a while ago. Here we are reflecting more on the driving part in general and how my views have changed with regard to driving. I've already talked about this a little bit as well. That was episode 8. It was a long time ago. About being car-free and carefree. I normally write it with the E in brackets, so car-free, carefree. Especially as my 13-year anniversary in Vegas is here, and my time without a car, again, has been educational in this place. I did have a car when I moved here. I think I sold it 7 years ago. 7 or 8. I can't remember. It was a while ago. I have a picture of the car right before I got rid of it, so I could probably tell you what the date was, but pre-pandemic, to be sure. Obviously, the Volkswagen brand and the notion of Volkswagen, especially the older ones, where the people's car, have played a role in my personal driving evolution. And that first 1970 Bug that I got when I was in high school was, of course, the big game changer. The thing I ponder when I look back at that decidedly not attractive vehicle. It was completely functional. It served its purpose, served it well, pretty much reliable all the time. And I did not need to be overly concerned about grand theft auto or burglary or even dents and scratches. And it also ran on regular gas, which was 79 cents a gallon at the time. I compared this to the other Volkswagen vehicles I've had over the years, including my GTI with the big dent in the side from scraping a fence post, a white fence post, of course, a black GTI, white scrape mark on the side. Great. That's how life was back then. And I have to think that aside from the coolness of the diesel Jetta that I had at one point when I was living in Phoenix, that was a 2002 Jetta TDI, the Jetta of old. That was the 90 horsepower engine. If you're an aficionado, 90 horsepower is a lot more than it sounds like. And it was amazing, and it got amazing mileage, which was even more amazing. So great car. Probably my favorite car, really, on reflection. And I'm certain that I will never purchase or lease a brand new car again. So I leased the diesel Jetta. It was brand new. Probably not going to happen again. That diesel Jetta, probably the engine is probably still fine 20, 25 years later. It simply is not worthwhile for the sake of driving to have a brand new car. I mean, aside from the depreciation when you drive it off the lot, of course, it's ridiculous. But yeah, cars are more trouble than they're worth most of the time. So that math is easy. So I enjoy the pedestrian life. Now, I was a pedestrian for a long time in Glendale growing up. So we moved there I was in first grade, and I wasn't driving just yet, even though I would learn how to drive a few years later. Again, in college, I was car-free for all 4 years I was in school. And now here in Vegas for about 7 years, I'm estimating, like I said, it's pre-pandemic for sure, so 7, maybe 8 years. All different places, these 3 areas, Glendale or maybe metropolitan Phoenix. I left out, I did have a car in Phoenix. I also had a car in Sunnyvale, Sunnyvale, California, Bay Area. And I also had a car here in Vegas when I first moved here for about, what is that math? About 6 years or so. The way people drive on the streets of Greater Vegas is one of the reasons there are so many pedestrian issues here. That is injuries and worse as a result of collisions with cars. So I can't say that I'm always happy to be a pedestrian without a steel vehicle wrapped around me, but I would rather, I hope one does not get wrapped around me. That would be no fun. When I used to drive more than walk, which was, there were times when the place where I used to live when I had the car, still is, I think it's actually 1 kilometer So like zero point 0.6 something, 0.62 miles or something like that. It was a little over half a mile to walk. But there were times when I would drive my car to the grocery store half a mile. So take that for what it's worth. So when I used to drive more than walk, I think I was pretty good about, and so especially in Glendale, Phoenix, I think it was pretty good about yielding to pedestrians, especially when they were on a curb, weighing whether they should step into the crosswalk. It's always a life-changing, possibly life-changing decision. There is a nonverbal exchange, or there's supposed to be. We learned about that in driver's education when I was in high school. Car language, body language, eye contact mostly. That should basically, you look into the driver's eye so you know that they see you. That should indicate whether the pedestrian is going to go for the crossing or wait. That should be the exchange. Like, I'm not moving. I myself prefer to wait when I am the pedestrian, and I will tell you why in a moment. The carefree notion remains true for me this many years later, especially here in Greater Vegas, where car insurance runs high. Honestly, I don't know what it is right now, and I don't want to know. But apparently it is among the higher insurance rates. I cannot imagine being a 16-year-old trying to pay for car insurance today. Parking is a pain, and it can be very expensive if you're in certain places. The free parking days, they come and go. I think right now they've gone. So although I think there are some free parking promotions on the Strip and whatnot, but it becomes I have to deal with leaving this hunk of metal somewhere, and I have to pay for the privilege. Car-related crime can be a problem now and then, although I was always lucky when I did have my Scion XB. I didn't get broken into. Didn't get broken into at all. And to be honest, and by the way, where I was living, there were occasional car break-ins. So I don't know why. I guess I just kept all my everything you could see in through the windows was not worth anything. So, and nobody wanted to steal my XB, which is probably good. To be honest, because of the way my neighborhood is laid out, where I live right now, and from what I have seen elsewhere in the Greater Vegas area, there are several places where walkable surroundings make a car unnecessary on the daily unless you have to commute across town or something. So a lot of places, I'm not going to say it's a 15-minute neighborhood or anything, a little bit more well-defined. But as it happens, and it can vary wildly depending on commutes and specific areas, whether a car is actually needed or essential. But I happen to be in a walking distance situation. I can get groceries. I can go to my preferred gym, which is just slightly over 1 mile, which is nice for a warm up and cool down walk. So I walk to the gym, walk home. Groceries, I normally, like I said, I have my standard loop, which ends at the grocery store, and then I go home from there. So that's usually I take the long way to the grocery store, as I like to say. And a mini transit center with 2 bus routes, which takes 8 minutes to walk to. 2 bus routes, so that one they both take me downtown. There's a downtown transit center, the Bonneville Transit Center in downtown Las Vegas. And in one case, one of those routes takes me all the way to the airport if I need to fly somewhere. And both of them enable transfers, and I can always meet up with a ride share. I've done that several times. There's an overpriced ride share. In fact, Lyft, and Uber are pricey here. They used to be a better deal. They used to be much cheaper than taxis, but it is what it is. So, but if I do need a ride share, I can do that, no problem. And I mentioned the hybrid. So if I can take a bus, like I said, there's a bus that'll take me downtown. So if I need to go somewhere that's not on a convenient bus route from downtown, I spend $2 to get downtown, and then so I'll tell you right now, a typical Lyft ride to get to the transit center from the mini transit center up here. So a trip to downtown, equivalent endpoints, start and end. I think it's $25. So I can spend $2 on the bus, $25 on rideshare. So I take the $2 bus ride, and then I need to go another, 2, and I think it's 12 miles or something. So if I take a Lyft, or usually Lyft, I don't really care for Uber, from the downtown transit center, I can, maybe for $5 or $6 instead of 30, get to some destination somewhere. So yeah, it can work. It's It's actually pretty functional. And of course, getting to the airport, same thing, $2 each way. But I was going to say you could get a bus pass, but if I'm going anywhere for more than 24 hours, it's $2 each way. Which I have to say is, I mean, that's hard to beat. That is very hard to beat. I used to, no, I won't. That's another story. I've told that story before. When I was flying places for work, I would go to the airport for $2. There is overpriced ride sharing. There are buses. There are car rentals. So there are ways to get around. It's fairly easy to get to anywhere in the greater Vegas area if I really need to without owning a car. And of course, even if I spent the $25 to get downtown, it's much less than maintaining a car all the time. So if I had to bite the bullet and take a Lyft to get to wherever, the airport or something, I don't have to pay for a car and insurance and registration, gasoline, the potential for burglary and theft and whatever. Don't have to deal with it. So if I did have to pay for rideshare or even to rent a vehicle, it's still cheaper than owning one. That math still remains pretty straightforward. Hang on a second. All right, we're back. That was a pause, not an edit. There are pedestrian challenges, especially here in Greater Vegas. Now, I mentioned that I was a pedestrian for most of the time I was in Glendale when I lived there. Had a car for 2 years in high school, 2.5, 2 years, two full years. And then I went off to college, so I drove in Phoenix for 2 years. So I was much more pedestrian than driver. But I did have a sense of being a pedestrian. And then when you are in a car, you remember being a pedestrian, hopefully. Here in Vegas, I think I'm about 50-50. In the Bay Area, I was much more of a car driver for the first tour of duty. And then when I returned, I was much more often a pedestrian. So I kind of have a mix of car driving and car defending myself from cars. So car-free, yes, but carefree, not always. The nonverbal communication thing is at the top of the list of challenges, true anywhere, but an actual problem here in Vegas. Now, I grew up in Phoenix, as I just was describing. I started driving in Phoenix. Okay, so I mentioned the 2 years thing. I took driver's ed. I will say that not in my class, I think she was 1 year behind in high school. Someone did, unfortunately, it was bad. A unmarked crosswalk, it was a marked crosswalk, but no uncontrolled. So it was not a corner. It was for football games, there would be a lot of students going to the games and stuff. And then there was a crosswalk that led to a 7-Eleven across, probably a Circle K actually, across the street. It was across Central Avenue, which was not in the evenings, was not a high traffic roadway typically. But this person, she was crossing the street. Car didn't stop. So that was very unfortunate. That was one of those things. And I was taking the driver's ed class when this happened. So we definitely had a nice conversation about that. It's something to think about. And I do think about it occasionally, especially on the pedestrian side. I think I had some sense of the rhythm though, because of that. So if there is such a thing. Sunnyvale, and the rhythm includes like whether people tend as a pedestrian to take the right of way or to yield it. Cars, it's always better to yield the right of way, they say. But as a pedestrian, I think it's always better to yield it 100% of the time. I don't even accept traffic control directions from drivers. I'll be like, nope, not going, not walking. Go ahead. It's all you. I get the looks from that. Sunnyvale, where I lived in the Bay Area, was certainly pedestrian friendly from the perspective of neighborhoods. So people did walk from home to the grocery store and whatnot. And I lived near downtown Sunnyvale. That was completely pedestrian friendly. There were a couple of main arterial roads that carried a lot of traffic to the freeway, the 101, and to the 280, same street, Matilda. But in general, there was a lot of Sunnyvale that was much more pedestrian friendly in general. So walking around was pretty straightforward, although I did have a friend who was hit and run on his bicycle in his neighborhood, which was very near where I was living. I could walk to his house at the time, 10 minutes. So that was very unfortunate, obviously. Hit and run, so they've still not found the person that did it, which is it'd be nice if they did. But anyway, I think it was more a biking place, maybe, except for that situation, over longer distances. So I don't think people would walk 2 miles, 3 miles, right? I think it was a little bit easier to either bike or jump in a car, because I think there was just enough of like high traffic areas between different more distal places. So walking from here to there might involve crossing through some high traffic areas. So I think people would tend to stay close to home for walking. Anyway, it's hard to say. I never did a survey. It was just from memory. So I think there was more biking over longer distances, and there were high traffic roads, but a lot of low traffic roads. I was a pedestrian in Sunnyvale, and I rarely, if ever, had any real concerns. I had my XB there for the second. When I moved to Sunnyvale, when I initially moved to Sunnyvale for the second time, I had my diesel Jetta, and I was not using it at all. So I went car free for a little while, and then I got the XB, and then I moved to Vegas. So anyway, you get the idea. So I was a pedestrian a bit in Sunnyvale, and it was fine. So Phoenix, Sunnyvale, and now Las Vegas all tend to have a transient population, if you will, in one way or another, so that driving styles are not consistent at all. Phoenix is just a big city with a giant grid system, so a lot of roads were potentially high traffic. Sometimes they had the suicide lanes, the reverse traffic lanes. So if your watch was 1 minute ahead of your opposing traffic, you both be facing each other. One of the dumbest ideas in the world. So they're either turn lanes or north. What is it? Would that have been? Yeah, I guess north south. It would have been either north for morning traffic, say, and south for evening traffic. But again, if you're not like, oh, my watch says 5 o'clock. Oh, mine says 4:58. So bad idea. But anyway, so there were some situations where road safety, and forget about it if you're on a bicycle or a pedestrian. In those, it was totally crazy. But you're better off, since it is a grid system. You could just say, I'm going to go over a couple blocks and take a less traveled path. Okay, I had to take another little break there. Yeah, so Phoenix, big city, 4 or 5 million people, large metropolitan area, sprawling, all kinds of driving styles. You never knew for sure. And when I say that, like, some people will tend to yield, some people will take the right of way, some people will merge ahead, some people will merge behind when they're getting on a freeway or getting off. So there's all kinds of things where you just have to pay attention, and that I know is hard for people. Sunnyvale is a small city, but it was a big, small city. At the time I lived there, it was like 120,000 people or so. Now I think it's 140, 150,000, but it was still a small city. And one of the larger cities on the peninsula, but still a small city. But it was in Silicon Valley, which meant a lot of people from all over were driving on the roads, getting from here to there. So you always had to, again, pay attention. We didn't have cell phones, though, back then, so that was a little bit easier. Las Vegas, though, has a combination of sorts. It has neighborhoods that still get a lot of traffic, on top of the need to move around with the construction ongoing all over the place. Some people jokingly say the traffic cone is the state bird. It's certainly the city or county bird, if that's the right. It's probably more the county plant life, since they seem to sprout everywhere. Now, as a full-time pedestrian here in Vegas, I have to say that people are in a mad rush often, and so they're definitely not paying attention. They drive fast. They don't watch for pedestrians. Not 100% of the time, but more than I would like. They are not paying attention to me. Bicycles do a little bit better from what I can tell, but it's not great. People are just generally in a hurry to get places, and because of the variance of driving styles, you never know for sure what's going to happen. They tend to be impatient. And I will say one of my least favorite scenarios is with multi-lanes. If I'm going to cross, I can see, and I'll mention this again, I can see all the way behind you, right? I can see all the way down the street that I'm going to try to cross. And the car that wants me to go may be in one lane, and then there'd be maybe an empty lane, but I can see a car is coming. And this is true at uncontrolled intersections in particular. That car is not going to stop. We already know that. They're gonna find some reason to blow through the intersection. If it is a controlled intersection, definitely, because if the light turns green, the person at the corner, maybe they're going to turn right or something. They're like, go, go, go. And I'm like, no, 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 I can see the car. Anyway, it can be a little dicey. And I find here very often it makes more sense to let the cars go. The strip can be far worse than the more residential areas. So now and then you'll hear about cars plowing over the sidewalk and into people, and it's horrible. But in general, I think the streets and sidewalks of the Greater Vegas area are, well, the old expression that you always have to have your neck on a swivel, it definitely applies. You just have to always be looking. The big thing I run into here is people driving cars really want to make the decisions. So as a pedestrian, my number one goal, right, which does not align with car drivers, my number one goal is to not be hit by a car, right? And so I can stand on the corner and wait. So I have been known to pull out my phone to make that point clear. Like, I'm not crossing. I'm going to hang out here right now. I can hang out here all day. So, because they'll be honking, waving, gestures. Getting to my destination is a really close second, but really not being hit by a car, first place. I will almost always, and I mean over 80% to be sure, yield to the car or cars, especially if they are turning onto the road from a parking lot or a side street, right? So they usually will have a lower visibility than I am. And I'll tell you why. So I can always see more than the driver can, because I can go all the way out to the curb and I can see both directions. I can see behind them. I can see everything. They are in their car. They're in a rush. They're just making sure that there isn't a car that's going to come and hit them. So they're looking to the left usually. My favorite is when people look to the left and I'm on their right, but they figure, oh, okay, there's no car coming. I'm going to go. So to me, that's an obvious one, right? I'm going to let this car go. I'm not even going to try to cross in front of them, behind them. I'm just going to chill. So I can always see though. I can always see more than the driver can. I can always see that there's another lane and there's a car coming in that lane. And you never know if they're going to, like the person coming out of the parking lot might go into the second lane instead of the near lane. Best to just hang out on the sidewalk if there is one. And that's a different story for another time about the improvements of roadways here. But I can always see more of the driver. I know when the other cars are approaching behind a tree or a sign. That happens quite a bit. In the more suburban areas, there's always a tree overhanging. There's a weird sign placement. There's something that makes my visibility better. Because again, I can step all the way over to the curb. Like I have an unobstructed view of the actual roadway, and the car. They got the hood of the car in front of them. They're sitting back from the curb, so the front of their car is not at the curb. So they're already like 2, 3, 4, 5 feet back, depending on how far they've pulled up. So yeah, I have nearly 100%, and they do not. What else? So I know that it is a better idea to wait. Always, 100% of the time, just wait until the cars have cleared my path. And by the way, it could be a car about to turn left, come to my right, crossing my path into the parking lot or into the side street. And those people, all they care about is oncoming traffic. They are not looking for pedestrians. So again, there was some wise words. I will just say one of my parents told me with regard to riding on a motorcycle: always assume drivers in cars are proactively trying to kill you. So act accordingly. I always yield to cars. I'm like a dog or a cat sometimes. I'm just going to let that car cross. I'm not going to try to run in front of it or behind it. I'm just going to chill, find a fire hydrant, take a moment. So my not taking traffic direction from car drivers that will often ruffle their feathers, and I get honks and commentary sometimes, finger gestures, like I said. But I am still here. I'm speaking right now. So the strategy does work. There have been a couple, I'm not going to say close calls because they weren't really that close, but there have been a couple times where you're like, really? I've had closer calls with e-bikes and scooter riders who ride on the sidewalk and who don't care to yield to the pedestrian, those people I actually hate. I feel hatred for them because they're stupid. So self-driving cars are a thing. Nevada was a drone test site a decade ago, one of 6 states approved by the FAA. Was it? I think it was more than a decade. Okay, we'll call it I think it was 12 years ago. So you gotta test your drones. So the Nevada was a test site, and that has led to a generally friendly environment for self-driving vehicles in general. So whether they were drones or they could be self-driving, they could be remotely controlled. If we had more water, there would probably be some submarines scooting around. But we have UAV, which is it unmanned aerial vehicles, or is that now autonomous vehicles? I don't even know what the EV, AV, UAV, whatever it is. I know EV is electric vehicles. Anyway, there are a variety of companies driving this, pun intended. So we have remotely piloted vehicles that will somehow, it's like a mix, like a hybrid of self-driving and remote driving. There's pure self-driving. There's a variety of possibilities. And while we did have a collision between a delivery truck and a self-driving vehicle many years ago in downtown, you probably could find that actually made the news. I hear much more about pedestrian collisions than I do about self-driving vehicles running into trouble. It does happen now and then, but of course, human driver, human collisions, like we've all come to know over decades, those are still very popular here, unfortunately. I suppose I could try out a self-driving vehicle in the form of a taxi of some sort. That might be interesting. They operate on the Strip, as far as I know. The Zooks, for example, as far as I'm aware, they do not run from the Strip, for example, out to the suburban areas. So there are no true taxi or equivalent self-driving or autonomously piloted vehicles that I know of. And I live in the burbs in the city of Las Vegas. So outside of the novelty of maybe checking out the new Zooks self-driving taxi service, and I think they're more like a people mover. I think they're more like a box that you can step into, and then there's like, it's almost like sitting around a table, but no table, around the outer edge of the box if you're sitting inside of it. Or maybe you could jump on top of it. I don't know. So I think it looks like a box with four wheels. It's running around the Strip, and I think they had some promotional pricing. I think it was free for a little while. But I don't really see a ton of value. To be honest, the 24-hour bus pass and the Deuce, which runs up and down the Strip 24 hours a day, are probably more practical if getting around on the Strip is actually on the menu for the evening or the day. And eventually I can use that same bus pass to get all the way home. So dealing with self-driving or whatever, outside of the novelty, it seems like more trouble than it's worth to me. I would like to see self-driving buses at some point. I think that would be interesting. I don't know how those would work out on the existing bus routes of the greater Vegas area or just in general anywhere that this would be tried. But maybe some express routes that would be more point to point without moving around in busy areas would be good. Maybe something along those lines. Don't get me started on the boring loop, though, with humans driving Teslas in these little tunnels, which seems dumb. Why not a subway? Why not? If you're going to bore out these tunnels, why not put in a subway that could just run all the time? A lot of transportation people have been shaking their heads when they comment on the loop. I personally don't want to contribute to the various problems and OSHA violations during the construction phases of different parts of the loop system. I guess there's going to be more OSHA violations regarding like safety and exposure to chemicals and safety practices, just everything. The Boring Company, its owner is ridiculous, so I don't really want to be supportive of that. So I don't know if I will try it anytime soon, the loop or any of its, I don't know whatever. I don't really feel a burning desire to try it out. Last section, options and the future. Like, what do I want to do about this now that I'm this far into being car-free and carefree? So in these crazy times, who knows if I will remain in Vegas for a long time, or who knows? But in the near term, 1, 2, 3 years, I sometimes ponder something like a scooter to get around over longer distances. Like if I want to go to Walgreens right now, sorry, not Walgreens, Walmart, I can walk to Walmart. It'd be a little sweaty, to say the least. But then carrying things back from Walmart would be something of a chore. So I have a bicycle, but honestly, I think it would get stolen if I were to ride it all the way out to Walmart and then leave it locked up outside. I think people would still take it. So going to a grocery store or some other errands at a distance starts to become a little like, do I want to walk all the way out there? I can grab a bus, take the bus back. So that Walmart, by the way, is on the 106 bus route from the mini transit center. So I wouldn't need to get a scooter to go there. But occasionally there have been times where I'm like, it'd be interesting if I could go out to that place, but too much of a pain. So from a convenience standpoint, it might be interesting to have something like a scooter. I don't really need a whole car. I mean, a gasoline powered scooter, by the way, not an e-bike. Although maybe an e-bike would be interesting. The e-bikes, though, I think might be more stealable. So I don't know, and they're very expensive for what they are. I think a scooter would be a little bit heavier and less likely to be stolen. Not not what a grand theft scooter, is that a thing? I don't think you can protect against that completely, but it seems less likely. I haven't checked out the stats. I wrote stats on e-bike theft or scooter theft in my neighborhoods or where I might want to go. So, but they're a little expensive for what they are. So I could just ride a bike, hope for the best, or take a bus, or do the hybrid ride share thing. I don't really have a burning desire to get to any place that's that much of a challenge, but I could, life is short. I rented a U-Haul to move to my new place where I've been living for 4 years or so, 5 years, coming up on 5 years. And I like the place just fine. I could rent a car or a truck or whatever if need be, if I needed to move something or get to a particular place or whatever. I absolutely cannot see having a car 24/7 to deal with in this modern era. Like you pay for the car all the time, even if it's sitting. And by the way, that was one of the reasons I sold my XB. It sat for 7 months because I was traveling for work and all that stuff. Like, why do I have this car? I'm paying for it. Now I got to, honestly, the final straw at the time when I got rid of it, I would have had to pay for a new registration, new smog check, renew the insurance, and I was paid off. So I'm like, that's a lot of money to spend on something that's just been sitting there. I should, if I really need a car, I'll cross that bridge later. So I got rid of it. Yeah. So I think not having a car, it seems, and I've taken buses here. It was me and the bus driver. The one time I took an extended bus. I think they're 42 feet long or something. The articulated bus with the back section and the rubber gasket thing around it. Me and the bus driver. Like there's room in this bus for like 50, 60, 70 people. I don't even know. And it's 2. So those could be done better. So I think our public transit system could be a lot better here in Vegas. I think public transit in general is an essential component of any functional municipality. It's something that deserves a lot more attention than it's getting, no matter where you are. Free buses are not the ideal solution, but being price aware so that they maintain competitiveness. They're, like one of the competing elements is if you have a carpool lane, then you can fit, say 4 van pool, you can fit 6, 8, 10 people in a van, but you're only paying, you split the cost of that. But a bus pass, one person pays for 1 bus pass, 2 people pay for 2 bus passes, 3 people pay for 3, etc. So remaining price competitive and also being aware that some people might need to be subsidized to get to work and so on. So much better to have one vehicle. These are arguments that you can find everywhere. They totally make sense. And I'm a huge fan of public transit. So I would like to see that improve here. It's such an afterthought here, the notion of having buses. Buses in Vegas sometimes stop moving at 11 p.m. Like, are you serious? Are you 24 hours on the strip? But if you want to get home, sorry. Those buses could run, even if they ran every 2 or 3 hours, into 7, 8 in the morning, 6 in the morning, I think it is. So a couple of buses between, 11 p.m. and 6 a.m. or whatever. That would be fine. I don't know. Final point. I have at times entertained the notion of some sort of a van life idea. Bad idea, probably. But a motorhome of some size, from whether it's a van or a giant palatial megabus or whatever, doing road trips to and near more interesting places than my road trips of old, which were basically from the Bay Area to Phoenix. I never really went crazy, let's cut through Oklahoma to get someplace. I never really did mid-country, long haul, all the way across, that kind of stuff. I don't know if at this point if I would enjoy the driving part though so much though. So I don't know if that still makes sense to even ponder. But it would be essentially it would be well, the driving would be an essential part of the notion of having such a vehicle to go places. I think if I could avoid driving at all, I would be completely fine with that. I have pondered taking the train or the Zephyr and the whatever across to all the way to New York. I think to Penn Station, maybe someday. But I would be fine with not driving anymore. I don't miss it. I don't long for that type of freedom, I guess. And like I said, I could just go rent a car if I really needed to. I could rent a truck. I could rent whatever. So not having, I don't have to say, oh, I have the fill in the blank, right? Oh, I went with the scooter. I can't move a couch in my scooter, but I could rent a U-Haul, right? So being tied to a vehicle that's depreciating while it's sitting there is there are cases to own things. This is not one of them, I think. So I have my miles behind me for the most part, I think. So I'm going to let you drive. So that's it. You can hear my voice is ready to give in. So I'm going to leave it there. We did reach the end of my planned episode commentary. So here we are. Yeah, I'm fine with not driving anymore. I'm totally, and again, because I have my driver's license is current. I can rent a car if I really needed to. Occasionally you'll hear about these spots. Oh, if you drive past, north of, what is it? Tonopah so I live, Tonopah is like the last city of size before you're out in the middle of nowhere in the middle of Nevada. So, oh yeah, if you head out to Tonopah, you can find this, or there's a little quaint town 50 miles north of where you're like, well, there's no buses that run out there. So renting a car would be totally doable if I really needed to. So yeah, I'm completely fine with not owning a car. I don't really have any plans to change that. And I can be flexible as far as which vehicle for what purpose, which I think works out a lot better. So that's it. That's all I know. I hope the bus system in Vegas improves over time. I don't think it will. I think it's only going to get worse. I know they want to do a rate increase. For what? You guys are awful. But you're going to have to pay more money. So that's the way it is. All right. Thank you for listening as always. And yeah, what will next week's Quaggling Sand be about? I can only imagine. And so I will. Take care. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.